Of course, one of the big questions has really been a focus on South Africa's fight against gender-based violence and just why it is. There's very little progress being made in that regard. Let me invite then onto the show to have part of that conversation with us tonight, Dr. Gcina Mhlophe, who is a poet, anti-apartheid activist. Dr. Mhlophe, good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. You know, when we talk...
Very good evening to you, Ms. Mhlophe. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you, Ma. You know, when we talk about gender-based violence, we're talking about something that has really become a national shame because there's no other way of describing it. And yet, it has become a shame that we live with on a day-to-day and seemingly don't have clear solutions on how we are going to break the cycle of the violence that our society brings with it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It is hard to receive messages and hear people saying Happy Women's Day because there's very little to be happy about. It is painful that when we commemorate such an important date, when our mothers and grandmothers march to Pretoria to say they don't want passes, they will not be degraded and made to feel small and unimportant in the country of their birth. But it seems like nowadays the pain, the chains have been made heavier, and the shame is even more in the times we're living in. And the sad thing is that even if the police arrest the people who do the horrible things, the justice system says it's okay, you can get your bail. In fact, you've behaved well, you can go home early. And so it is very, very complicated for women to have trust in the justice system. It is very difficult for women to work out what to teach their children, to teach the girls to be scared all the time, to teach the boys to be brave all the time. I don't know what we are expected to do in this country. And it should not be like this. We should be coexisting and rebuilding the nation, the unemployment and the kind of sicknesses that are here, and dealing with the land that we still need, dealing with skills shortage. There's so much that we should be focusing on as nation builders, not fearing men. That's not what National Women's Day should be about, or Women's Month for that matter. Sometimes it feels like some men want to kill women to say it's Women's Month, so what?
You know, it feels sometimes like we are having a conversation that's going around in circles, that you hear the same kind of commitments being made year in, year out. It's been 4 years since gender-based violence was declared a national epidemic by President Cyril Ramaphosa. And you then had the establishment of the National Strategic Plan. But since then, we haven't had any tangible progress that speaks to the solutions that would have come out of a process like that. It seems to have been inconsequential that it was declared a national epidemic.
Inconsequential is the word. And in fact, it seems to be getting worse and worse. And the fact that there is no action, the fact that we do not hear, I don't know how many politicians, I must start counting, I don't know how many politicians are in parliament. I do not know who holds which position anymore, but we hardly hear their voices. We hardly hear women in politics saying something out loud, saying this is enough. Even on this day, National Women's Day, it is the president who makes the most important speech, and that is what the journalists are reporting on. There's been so much going on in the country, throughout South Africa, events that should be reported on, and somehow we need to report on what promise has been made by the president of the country. I don't know what good that's going to do for us. And also, the number of times committees have been formed and promises have been made, there's been no result. There's been no feeling of security and feeling safe for women in this country. I don't know what we're supposed to do in this country. We are becoming more and more hopeless when we look at the situation. It feels like the electricity of respect, there's a blackout on the electricity of respect and love and compassion and nation building and caring for the women folk, the life givers inzala bantu. I don't know what you say in Sesotho, but KaSizulu, we say inzala bantu, the life givers. There's no respect for the life givers.
Let me bring into this conversation Nokuzola Kolwapi, who is also a stalwart. Good evening to you, Mam Nokuzola. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. Perhaps let me just begin by getting your own reflections on, a day like today, celebrating Women's Day on Women's Month 2022, and yet the prospects for women in this country look a lot dimmer than they were before.
Good evening, South Africans. Good evening, Newzroom Channel 44. Thank you for inviting me to be a guest speaker in this platform. Definitely, when you look back, you will always say it was 1956 when the women raised up and they told themselves that they have to take the fight to themselves to change the whole situation of women. But it also saddens to realize that even this day, this morning, in one of our groups, in our local groups, you will still find that there's still so much injustice of women. Women are still being raped. Women are still being treated unfairly. Those things, they troubled because we've come this far, trying so much to bring so much awareness that us also as women, we are humans. We need to be treated the same, with the same dignity, with the same respect. But you will find, as much that we are life givers, as Gcina Mhlophe was alluding, that we are life givers, but it's as if we are not to other human beings of this country. In fact, in the entire world, it saddens our heart to find that still a woman needs to raise a hand to be respected as a human being.
Did you imagine that this is where we would be this far on into our democracy, marking 28 years of what is a post-democratic country?
If you can recall the long queues in 1994 when we were voting in this country, and the statistics by then, it was saying more than 60% of the voters were women. We were thinking by then our situation will be far more different than what it is today. But you know what? We still believe if women can unite, if us as women, we can unite, we can support each other. There are so humongous things that we can do in this country. We can change the whole situation. If only us as women, we can trust each other, we can acknowledge each other, we can know that we are the life givers. All these things that are happening, it's things that are emanating from us originally and naturally so. So if we can just unite, we've never foreseen that we can still be in this predicament. We're thinking that things will be better because of 50% was alluded to by our leading organization, ANC, but still it's a struggle. When you go to women predicament in the working areas, you will still find that it's an issue for a woman to be a leader. Mm-hmm. So these things we've never foreseen that at this stage we're still talking the same language. By then we're thinking that we'll be talking much, much, much better things. And the struggle should have improved our lives because we didn't vote for still this situation that we're in, where we're being undermined in every aspect of life.
Dr. Mhlophe, when we look at the statistics of our demographics in this country, the last I checked, women made up the majority of people in this country. What do we need to be doing with that? It's got to mean something. You can't be in the majority and yet still be the most marginalized.
We certainly are in the majority. When you look at the schools, you look at universities, you look at the top achievers are often women. And when you go into business, the position holders are men. Now I'm looking at something that is just got nothing to do with violence, just something like academic achievement, something like in the business and other leadership spaces, it is men who are in leadership. And then when a woman gets a position, oh my goodness, call the world press. There's one woman who has achieved the election, like here in KwaZulu-Natal. There's a whole fracas because there's our lady, our Sister Nomsa Dube Ngube, who's now the premier of KwaZulu-Natal. It's like there's rocket science. What a miracle. It should not be a miracle. It should be an everyday thing to think, is she deserving? Or Banyana, when they win, they win the cup and they bring it home. It should not be, oh, what a nice, it's not a surprise. They worked very hard in order. So all the achievements that have happened must be celebrated, and we must talk about them more and more often than to talk about horrible things. But in this case, with all the gender-based violence, with all the lack of respect and lack of shame, that's the word, lack of shame for what is being done to children and old women. And so I always worry about the very young and the very old. And so even in spite of us being a majority in terms of numbers, it doesn't do anything when the government doesn't honor us as such. So for me, I do not think things are going to change until there's a concerted effort to say women, the life givers, women are working just as hard as men to make a difference in this country. In whatever sector they are in whatever profession they are in, they are hard workers. So when you do that, in fact, when you look at homes where women are standing and holding those homes prove once and for all that we are the backbones of the African continent. Africa, that's us. So we need to support each other. We need to protect each other. We need to arm each other with information, knowledge, and skills. Unless we do that, nobody else is going to do it for us. That's a fact.
All right, Dr. Gcina Mhlophe, we'll leave it there. And, of course, you'll know her as a poet, anti-apartheid activist and struggle stalwart, Nokuzola Kolwapi, weighing in then on this Women's Day about where we are as a country.